Stop putting pressure on yourself. Stop overthinking the art journal page. Enjoy the process. Find joy in the journey. And it all starts with the decision to make one decision at a time. So I'm working on my 7x10 Canson Mixed Media Art Journal page. And my first decision was to use this napkin. I love the colors of it, but it's really busy and I really never quite knew what to do with it. But today I'm just going to glue it down across the entire background and start there. So I'm peeling off the excess layers because that's what you have to do when you're working with napkins. And then I'm going to glue this down across the background, kind of making it a insta background, if you will. Well, there goes the second layer. Sometimes they give you a bit of a fight. Persist and get them ready. Remember, you can save the excess layers and they have uses. Now, as I'm positioning this, I really like that white flower and I'm thinking I want that as a focal image. So I want more of them in my background. So instead of just gluing it down, second decision here is to just rip apart different parts to make sure that I get a few more of those white flowers that I love. And I guess we'll deal with the rest later on. So I'm just cutting it off. I'm using my liner brush here with some water to water cut it off. You could just rip it with your hands if you wanted to. I don't need to be terribly precise at this stage because I am going to cover the entire background with this. Now, because I've chosen to use this napkin, I'm also choosing that color scheme. That decision was made for me in my first decision. So I'm just trying to position this, avoiding any straight edges because I don't like them. They tend to stand out in the finished product. So I'm just ripping, water cutting bits and pieces, overlapping. I'm not too worried. The only thing I'm thinking I'm decided on is those white flowers are what I want to keep, or I'm going to attempt to keep, because at this time, I really don't know where this page goes. But let me tell you, because I just decided to go for it, have a play, I ended up in a great place. I love the background that I end up creating here. So I'm just going to cut some of this out. These little bits I can put aside, and they can be collaged down and find their way onto another page. So I'm just kind of mix and matching different parts of the napkin. FYI, this napkin came from NINNYSNAPKIN.com. If I find the name of it, I will include it in the description box below. But go and see at all the beautiful napkins. Napkins have so many uses on an art journal page, on a mixed media page. Test it out. Now I'm kind of low with my fluid matte medium, so I'm just going to put a good layer of it on here. And then I'm just going to glue down the napkin pieces. I don't care here if there's wrinkles or anything. That's just going to be added texture. I'm just putting it down. The only thing that I want to make sure that I do is have a lot of those white flowers. And I apologize, we're slightly off center here, so you're not seeing the whole thing. And I've chosen to have five of those white flowers. And I'm just filling gaps here to make sure that I have color. And then I'm sealing this, turning this into a non-porous surface with a coat of fluid matte medium on top. And once this is dry, I'm going to make my next decision. And my next decision was I'm going to use gesso to soften the edges. I just wanted to add some white space here. And so I start putting this is knocking back some of the other background. Remember, I had decided that I really wanted to isolate the white flowers, or the light yellow flowers, I guess they are, more to the point. But I start, and then at this point, I'm thinking, huh. I look up and I see this stencil that's sitting on my desk, and I start thinking, what if? So, because I'm enjoying the process, I grab a baby wipe and I wipe back. And I'm loving the effect here. It's allowing some of that background to show through. I've added a little bit of pattern. I'm loving this technique. I don't know, I guess it's removing paint through a stencil, but I love the effect that it's giving here. And then I just go to town. So I wasn't even sure what the process here was going to be. And I just keep going, and I end up doing all the background except for those light yellow flowers. So I knock back all the other, but some of those colors are still showing through, and that napkin served its purpose. I isolated the focal images that I like, the yellow white flowers, and I have my basic color scheme, which I'm going to continue to play with. Mainly that yellow, cream, light green, and the coral color. But I love how that stencil worked here, and I'm going to have to remember to do that again. So sometimes when you just go with the process, just are determined to just have a play, you discover some wonderful things. So I'm really liking that effect. It softened it. Who knew? So I just keep going until pretty much everything is not shining through. Now I could have opted to leave those yellow daisies on. I decided not to, and that's okay. If I was doing this again on a different napkin, or even if I chose to use the same napkin again, I could choose to do something differently and then experiment and see if which one I like best. I guess the very first decision I made today was to just enjoy creating. So now I have some of this Naples yellow and quinacridone magenta. I'm mixing them up to get that corally color that was in the napkin. Remember, the napkin gave me the color scheme. And I have this cutout stencil that I made with a silhouette years and years ago. I dug it out of my stash, and I'm just stenciling the daisy pattern in the background. It's a little bit brighter than what was in the napkin, and I'm choosing where I'm putting this. And I'm mixing the quinacridone magenta, the Naples yellow together to get kind of different blends. And because I sealed the whole background with the fluid matte medium, if I make a mistake like I did there, I can grab a baby wipe or a cloth and clean it up. Now at this point, I don't know what focal image I'm going to put on here. That decision hasn't been made, and outside of, I've got a whole bunch of focal images and different things that are just sitting on my table. I'm going to use them. I'm not going to look or search too hard. So I'm loving the colors that we've got going here. And I'm just stenciling this on. And I, haven't planned it out. I'm thinking, oh, if I was overthinking this, I would put this one over here, I position them differently. But if paralysis by analysis is something that you suffer from, like I do sometimes, I highly recommend this. Then I grabbed, this was actually a placemat, and I cut out part of it, and I like the little flower motif here. So I grab not Naples yellow, I believe it's yellow oxide, and I'm adding a darker yellow tone here and just covering it up. So I was inspired by the napkin, the background there, but I'm making my own background because who needs an Insta background? The biggest joy that I get in the art journal process is creating the backgrounds. I'm just loving this background, especially that removal of paint through the stencil with that check pattern in the background. So now these light yellow flowers, I've decided to make them a little brighter and make them white. So I'm just taking gesso on my round brush and really globbing it on. I'm not being too careful. I'm leaving the basic outline, but I want to whiten and brighten them. Now, to be honest, I was planning on colorizing them yellow using my Inktense blocks. I kind of had that idea in my head, but once I started this, I really liked the white, the bright white flowers here. I liked the way it looked. That's where I went with it. So again, when you're making one decision at a time, the other thing that we need to do is go with the flow. Follow where the page leads. Sometimes an idea that you have needs to be tossed to the wayside because a better idea presented itself, at least a different one. And know that there isn't any one absolutely right decision. Every decision you make will lead to the next decision and the next one and the next one, and it'll end up in a slightly different place. So I grabbed my small stencil brush from the Crafter's Workshop and I'm dotting the centers of the flowers. This is adding more white to the page, and I'm really loving the effect of this right now. I put white in the pink flower, but I didn't really like it. Different decision. But I grabbed the black, or actually the just straight up magenta, and I'm putting that in there. So I've got the circles in a couple places, but a different look. I wanted to add a little more black to the background to match the black of the white flowers, the centers of that. So I grabbed my script stamp, I'm putting black acrylic paint on it, and I'm stamping. Just adding a little bit of black, small scale black to the background. That kind of smudged right there. I keep going on. And then I decide, you know what? I can wipe that off. Everything's there. So I'm just kind of dabbing with the baby wipe. And because it's all permanent underneath, I can remove it and then restamp and have it look better. So when you're making one decision at a time, you have a variety of techniques that you know. If you want ideas or you're lacking ideas for techniques of what you can do, you might want to check out my prompt and process card, which give different steps in the process. And you can flip through the cards and say, oh, I could do that, or oh, I could do that. and make those decisions, but have the cards to guide you. I'll link the prompt and process cards. They're available as a digital download from NINNYSNAPKINS.com, and you can go check them up and see if it's something that might aid your creative process. So I want to add a little bit of color to the center of these flowers. So I've just got a round brush there and I'm kind of stippling the Naples yellow and the magenta, rubbing it with my fingers. I'm just trying different things to see what I like. It's kind of sort of working out the way I want, but not exactly. So I'm going to change it up in a minute. But I just wanted a hint of color right at the eye of or center of the flower. And then I decide I'm going to grab my angle brush and I'm going to shade around that. And that's giving me more of the effect that I want. It's a little softer, a little more diffused. Wouldn't this make a lovely napkin the way it is? The colors, I almost prefer these colors to the original. So even though the napkin, I started with it and I liked it, I did tweak the colors. I made some brighter white instead of the yellow or cream flowers, and I made brighter pink. Now I'm grabbed my woodless charcoal pencil and I'm tracing around the white flowers. This is adding a nice black border, kind of sketchy line. Now, the charcoal pencil will reactivate if I get it wet. As with the Stabilo All pencil, I'm opting to use that, but I need to remember down the road, I can't just take any wet medium and brush it on top, or it'll smear and I'm going to not like the effect. But I do like the effect of darkening the edges here. And I love the sketchy lines that you get with the charcoal pencil. So I am thinking about what I'm going to use for a focal image, if anything, because I could just put a sentiment on this and call it done. That is one decision I could make. But I'm thinking right now, the background is pretty much done. What will I do next? How am I going to approach? I want to darken the black of the center of the flowers. And then I grab the end of a paintbrush, dipping it in black paint and just dotting the centers of that pink flower. Not sure it worked out the way I wanted it to. Probably wouldn't do it again, but I tried something new. And if you don't try new things, you're never going to learn new things. And that's how, by trial and error and trial and success, I've learned all the techniques that I now bring to every creative session. I decided I wanted to add some bling and more circles to it, so I grabbed the lid. I've got gold paint there. I'm dipping into the gold paint and I'm just adding some circles to that background. Just going over top of pretty much anything that's already there. And as I'm watching this now, I'm really, I love the background before, but still love the background. And like I said, I could just put on a sentiment right now and it would be wonderful. So once I stamp these circles on, I do take time in between layers and I get out my heat tool. I just don't record that because, well, who wants to watch me watch paint dry? I grab my Choosing Joy sentiment pack. I keep it in these plastic envelopes. I've got, I print them off and cut them apart and then I store them in there and I type joy in the journey. That's my reminder for you to find joy in the journey. Enjoy the process of creating. That's why I art journal. It's not about the end product. It's about the process. It's about enjoying playing with color, playing with pattern. So I cut out the sentiment, joy in the journey, play a little bit about where I want it. And then I found this fairy sentiment pack or fairy focal image. And I decided I'm just going to glue her on the page on top of the. She kind of fits amongst the flowers. So I grabbed my fluid matte medium. Now remember, I had outlined white flowers with a charcoal pencil. So I need to be careful not to brush over top of them and smear it. So I'm putting the fluid matte medium underneath and then pressing and being just careful. I'm putting a little bit there on top of the flower, but I'm not rubbing. Joy in the journey. Now I grab that charcoal pencil and I'm just shading and edging the page. Now I could shade this or edge it with my angle brush, usual, but I like the effect of the charcoal pencil. You got to be careful when there's a napkin on there that you don't rip the napkin because you're rubbing on it. Oh, I found this little flower was in one stash that I have, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to add that little pink flower right to the front of the girl, just to bring that pink from the background into my focal image. And then the napkin that what was cream colored or yellow flower had the dots around the center of it. And when I painted over it, that kind of got lost. And I thought, yeah, I really like that look. So I grabbed my fine line applicator bottle and I'm just putting dots all the way around. When do you know when to stop? When you're perfectly happy with it. And sometimes I do an art journal page and then I think I'm done, the video's done, and then I look at it and go, oh, I could add this or I could add that. Because sometimes you get ideas after the fact. Most of my art journal pages I create in one sitting because I'm making videos and I want to get it done and it's just easier for my process. But you can break it up, and the advantage of that is that you sometimes bring new ideas on another day. I grab some gold and I'm just ever so lightly adding a layer of gold for the wings of the girl. Again, in my initial thought was I'm going to leave it all white. It was fine being white, but I got to that point and I decided, nope, I want to add a little bit of color. So I paint the wings of the fairy gold. She's got a crown there that I painted gold as well. A little bit of gold on her dress as well. I mean, little by little, one decision at a time. but you don't need to know every step before you start. That's the important thing here. Have fun, play with it, enjoy the process, and only worry about the next decision instead of all of them. Then I decided I'm going to paint her hair, and I decided to paint it brown. I wanted it to stand out. There's a lot of yellow on the page, so I didn't really want to go blonde with her. As always, there are close-ups of the finished page at the end. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me about your process. Tell me about whether you suffer from paralysis by overanalysis. Look at this beautiful page. I love it. I hope you do too. Now go out, get creative, try something similar. Thank you so much. Until next time, go get creative.